All right, well, welcome. It is 3 o'clock on Thursday, where it's live at Epiphan. Cue bumper. My name's, hey, there we go, live
There
at
we
Epiphan.
go.
My name is Cameron, and this is...
This is Xiao.
This
Hello.
is Xiao. We worked on that timing quite a bit. We got it nailed. We got it locked in.
It's locked in,
We locked
yeah,
in
absolutely.
the timing. Yeah, it's good timing. All right, so what are we going to talk about today, Xiao?
Today we are looking at 3 studio setups so you can make some effective training videos. But first, let's take a look at everyone who's in the chat.
Yeah,
We've
let's
got
get a
a
shout
lot
out.
of our regulars in here today. Tim Trop Productions, hello, hello, as well as David Larson Photo and Linda Boostra. And of course, Marta from,
Marta, I see
from
Marta
Palo
on there.
Alto, sunny California.
Yeah, Philip's on there. He's going to be throwing some shade on the chat. Oh, he's wishing happy birthday to George. As a gift to George Herbert today, he's not on the show.
What a gift.
So,
what a gift.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so we're talking about training videos today.
Oh, yeah, right. So we're talking about training videos. We're talking about how to make training videos. There's a few different options. Now, we feel that we are quite an authority on this topic. We've set up studios before. We do quite a bit of training material. We make videos.
We have been trained.
We have been trained. We wrote a blog post on it. We're actually going to be referring to the blog post a little bit throughout the episode.
Absolutely.
And we'll make sure to throw a link up in the chat and maybe on the show notes later. But yeah, we're going to go down through these 3 different setups, kind of from your basic setup all the way to the top of the line, Uber.
Money is no
Money
object.
is no object. Yeah, the Uber studio, it's on premises. You've got like a studio person just waiting. You know, this person's just going to be waiting in the studio for you, right? Like, keep them in a box or something. Like
in case of emergency, break glass, free technician.
Yeah, exactly.
But
the technician is just waiting in the shadows for you to come in and, hey, you want to make a video? Let's make a video.
just breathing on the glass.
Yeah, just breathing on the glass.
But these videos have been getting really popular because they're really useful.
They are, and as we know from our own experience and talking to clients, videos are really hot right now.
Yeah.
They get a lot more engagement than written content. It's just a lot more. It's a lot easier to watch a video than it is to and sometimes read an article. You can listen to a video if maybe you put it on your phone and you just have your headphones in. You might be watching on the train. Maybe you're watching on the plane as you're landing, but. Kind of get into a little bit more of that.
For a lot of technical stuff, you want to be able to see the screen. Like it's printing out a printout or a manual, that's one thing, but actually showing someone how it's done, that's really valuable.
Exactly, exactly. Now it does save time, so you don't have to have, you take someone away from their sales calls. Maybe it's a technician, we've made a video, so the new guy that's being onboarded, he can just watch that video, he's going to get that information they need. And it also allows people to kind of learn at their own pace, right?
Yeah.
So you can pause that video, you can rewind it, you can go back to it. There's videos, if you look at my playlist on YouTube, there's videos that I've watched like a dozen times because I haven't memorized a lot of it. I just know that I can refer back to it later.
And that's when you need it, when you're actually doing, like for example, like I watch a lot of Premiere Pro tutorial videos.
Totally.
And you watch those when you're doing that specific task, not 2 or 3 hours before or something, right?
Now, just on that one, isn't it it's terrible when you find a video that's the exact topic that you want, and then you start watching it and you look at the created on December 9th, 2013,
Oh,
and you're like, oh, okay, this is definitely not going to help me.
how many editions ago was this?
Yeah, exactly. This is like before there was even a cloud,
Yeah.
right? It was like Premiere 7 or whatever.
Right, right.
But, as we know, as we've seen online, not all videos are created equal. So some will kind of fall short of expectations.
Well, the worst ones you don't even want to watch anymore. If the audio is coming through all tinny or something and you're just like, okay, I'm not getting anything out of this. But
Exactly, exactly. Now, up on the screen, we've got a shot here. Xiao, why don't you fill us in on what studio this is?
this was Crestron Electronics down in New Jersey. Now, last week, Cameron, George, and I, George Birchall, not George H. We took a road
George the Second.
George the Second?
Affectionately referred to
like
here.
the king, okay.
No, just like the second George.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
We headed down there to do a use case video on Crestron Electronics. They had built this video studio for their own in-house production, and of course they're using Pearl units. We'll get into that a bit later on, but this is sort of a high-end. They've really gone all out in this space.
Well, this kind of answers the question, how do you create outstanding training videos you invest in your video setup.
Yeah.
Right? So Crestron, they future-proofed this studio. They're using some really high-end cameras, like cinema quality cameras in this space, and they're creating some really great content, and they're going to be creating even more content in the near future.
Well, like they were saying, just having the space available, that means for them it's a lot easier to pitch and have accepted the idea of a video.
Exactly, exactly. Now, we're going to show you 3 different setups. We're going to go through kind of the low end, or not the low end, it's not entry level, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
different, I shouldn't say low, because that's not really fair. But we're going to show you these 3 different setups, and really depending on which setup you're going to go with is going to depend on what kind of videos you're making and what your budget is.
Yeah, your own demands are going to dictate what you do, really.
Exactly, exactly. Now, of course, as we're going through the show, if you have any comments about your own experience, maybe you've set up a studio, if there's any learnings that you'd like to share with us, or any gear, or anything you think that we've said that's not correct, please throw it up on the chat. We'll ignore it. We might promote it. We might talk about it.
We'll get to
You never know.
it.
You might get to
It'll
it.
get seen.
Yeah, exactly. And, and Xiao's going to keep an eye on that. This is something that, I don't know how Herbert does it. He's very good at monitoring the chat. I've tried to monitor the chat and talk at the same time. I find it is really tough. But let's dive into the first one. So the first kind of studio setup that we're going to be talking about, what kind of studio setup is that today?
That's going to be a voiceover booth. Just like we were saying, when you're watching a tutorial for Photoshop maybe or After Effects, quite often it's just going to be a screen capture with a guy talking over it, showing you what he's doing.
Absolutely. Now, sometimes you might see the person, right? Maybe they have a little bumper at the intro, so you kind of get to engage with the person that you're watching. I think that gives a little bit of credibility.
Yeah, usually
right?
it does,
So you know who the person is, and you kind of identify with that person. Sometimes you don't see them at all, which is just fine. And sometimes they have subtitles. Sometimes they'll write in Notepad on the screen.
Oh, those ones are so frustrating.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about that one either. If they're talking and writing at the same time, I'm not sure what value that really adds.
You can barely see it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But this is really your entry level. You're just putting a narrative onto a video. Now, we do have a quick example. I can't think of what the username is of this one, but I refer to this guy's instructionals all the time.
Yep.
So this is a really great example. It's just a screen capture, and he goes through step by step by step. He's actually so proficient in After Effects that he can run through. He's not making any mistakes. I've never seen any edits in it, like any cuts or anything. That doesn't mean that they're not there, but generally, if you know the topic, you can run through it. It's kind of like right off the back of your hand, right?
Or you're just seeing the finished cut, right? The one good take or the perfect take. But
Exactly. Now, if you're setting up in a room, maybe a room like this or a small room, you're going to be having some challenges within that space. So what's kind of an audio challenge that you'd be dealing with?
I mean, the big one is obviously sound moves in waves. It reflects off surfaces. It creates echoes. It can do all sorts of stuff you don't necessarily really expect or want in that voiceover. So you're going to want to try and do something to dampen the sound in the room that you're recording in, to get rid of all that. Really trying to create the experience of a voiceover booth, like a pro-end voiceover booth, right?
Exactly. And, kind of think about like your shower, for example, right? Sorry, that wasn't a dig on shower. I just, your washroom.
Right.
You're with the shower head in it. But anyway, so you sing in the shower. It sounds great because you're in this little small space, and it's got lots of great reflection in it, and it sounds good. But it may not be good for voiceover recordings when you don't want that echo and have those sounds in there. Now, you don't have to spend a lot of money to create one of these spaces. You can.
You just need a little bit of planning, right?
Exactly. You just need a little bit of planning. So we've got a few examples. This is actually kind of fun because searching on here, I found like a crazy gamut of DIY booths. There was one that was like, I think the audio or the voiceover person would sit on the toilet, and there was these mattresses kind of piled up on either side of the toilet. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the space looks like.
If it does the job.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter what your space is going to look like. It's going to look sexy and have all these cool pads and stuff. But yeah, like Xiao said, as long as it does the job.
Nobody's going to see it.
Exactly. No one's going to see it. Unless you're like doing one of those where you see yourself at the same time. But yeah.
The important thing is getting that clean audio, and you've got to mat those walls somehow. So I mean, there's a lot of options there.
So what's an example of a space that most people already have in their house that they could use to find that dead zone?
Well, I mean, if you've got a walk-in closet, those clothes are going to eat up a lot of the sound, actually.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that's not exactly conventional. You don't always want to be hunched over underneath all your dress shirts or whatever, but it will do the job in a pinch.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have that kind of space, though, what are some of the tips that you might want to tell someone if they're trying to dampen the sound in those spaces?
Like let's just say you've got a walk-in closet with nothing in it, just a small closed room. You can put up some moving blankets on the wall, some cheap blankets or something like that. Make sure they're thick. Make sure you're getting rid of all those hard surfaces. Make sure they're absorbing as much sound as you can.
Well, just off camera, that's what we have in this space. We have moving blankets on this side. We have some nice kind of fancy acoustic panels on this side.
Yeah, if you've got the budget for it, of course, you can go on B&H and start, shopping for all the really fancy sound dampening stuff with the gray eggshells, right? Or,
yeah, totally. Those or the cones, whatever they're
right.
like the. It's like, is it agnostic? It's not agnostic. It's another word for it. But someone will tell us on the chat the right pronunciation. I'm sure Geraldine knows the exact word because it's that room with all the spikes in it, and it's really intense.
If you know, let us know in the
yeah,
comments.
exactly. Correct us on the comments. Now, like Xiao said, you can spend a lot of money on this stuff. You can go to B&H. You can invest a lot of money. You can save your egg crates as well.
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen that on Empire.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The R&B boys are starting. And they've got these egg crates up on the walls, and they're putting all this stuff everywhere, but it works.
If it does the job, that's what matters, right?
Totally.
Absolutely.
Now, something that was in the blog that I actually didn't consider, and it's kind of a safety consideration, if you are putting all this stuff in the closet, and you've got all this foam and all this material, what's something that you might want to consider worrying about if you're just padding the ceiling, for example?
Those light fixtures can get mighty hot, especially if you're not using LEDs, right?
Exactly. You've got some old track lighting that's like a halogen bulb up there.
Right, just never changed it.
Yeah, polyurethane has not ever been known for its fire retardedness, so it's definitely not something that you want to do.
This is not something we would recommend you put to the test, ever.
No.
So just be safe, be aware.
Yeah, exactly. Play safe.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking for something a little bit less permanent, so maybe your mom's not going to be super happy with you if you decide to, take all your clothes out and put this foam in your closet or whatever. So if you're looking for something a little bit less permanent, one of the rigs that we actually recommend is the Stage Right microphone. It is a isolation shield, and of course it's from Monoprice. You'd think that we actually were sponsored by Monoprice or something.
We just love a good deal.
Yeah, we do love a good deal. So Monoprice has kind of hit it on this one. It's very simple, as you can see in this really nicely kind of photoshopped composite
image,
baby grand in the background, and then this luxurious pool in the farther background. But what this does is it isolates those three sides. Or sorry, it doesn't isolate those three sides, but it allows more isolation for the mic.
Yeah, it's like a semicircle, really. Yeah, and that'll make sure you're not getting any sound coming from in front of you, and it'll reduce some of the echo. But I'm sure everyone's noticed it doesn't have a backside to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're gonna have to consider that reflection behind you, and just maybe put up some padding, and you could even just have a temporary thing, or if I don't know, if you just had like a big space, you wouldn't really have to worry about it as much, right?
Yeah. But
like this cavernous California flat that this person lives in.
I'm just imagining somebody walking through the back with like clacky shoes, and that'll really foul things up. We got Linda Boonstra in the chat saying you could use a cheap mattress pad as well if push comes to shove.
Cool.
And that is something we talked about as well, or something that we've got written down as well. Just the idea of those polyurethane mattress toppers. You just throw it up against one of the closet walls or something like that. That'll do a job as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't know where you're gonna sleep, right?
Well,
you're sacrificing
you can
your
sleep
mattress
when the project's done.
Yeah, you can sleep when you're done the recording. When it's perfect, then you can go to bed. Is there any other comments on there?
Yeah, Danny Grizzle here is saying that egg cartons, very old school. When he was a kid, his dad took him to a recording studio in Gladewater, Texas, where Elvis recorded, and it was sound treated with old fiberboard egg cartons.
Nice.
I wonder if they treated those with anything to stop them from, rotting. Because it's
asbestos,
just cardboard.
Probably. Yeah.
That would have been the thing
back
back
then.
then.
Those Elvis's days, it would have been straight asbestos on those curtains. Danny, of course, has a lot of experience. I was kind of waiting for Danny to weigh in. I'm sure he's got some more stories about that as well.
That is,
And where do you buy those? Because you have to get those I'd have to find them at Costco. Those are like the 12 by 12 ones.
You just get in the habit of having omelets for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I think.
Can't have that 8-egg omelet.
Yeah, just live in that space.
All right, now we have our affordable Monoprice sound shield. I love the name of that, the isolation shield.
Yeah, it's powerful.
So we have that. So what are you going to use with that shield? Obviously, you have to have a microphone.
Yeah,
right?
and you want to invest in a good microphone. And we've got an example of a microphone here, though not necessarily. I mean,
excuse me, that was a great.
This is sort of the podcaster's choice, right? The Blue Yeti, right?
The Blue Yeti.
And while it might be good for
ubiquitous Yeti.
Yeah, it might be good for a podcaster, just throwing up maybe reactions to the latest Game of Thrones, which is over. I wish I had a more relevant reference, but if you're doing something that really demands high quality audio.
You're talking about that latest episode of The Mandalorian.
Right.
Right? And you're getting into the Star Wars canon.
Yeah, there we go.
You get your theory about where the Yodas came from.
Yodai?
The Yodai? No, they have a name. They have a proper name.
Oh, do they?
We'll get into that next week's episode. Now, we like this kind of microphone. It's great. It has a stand on it. You have some good sound. Now, one of the other recommendations, of course, is a lav mic. So why would a lav mic be a little bit better than maybe one of these guys?
It's just going to allow you to control the sound a lot better. We use lav mics for this show, of course. They're clipped right onto our shirts, and really it allows you to bring down it allows you to bring down all the ambient noise and really just only hear the voice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
right here. It's very intimate. You'll see, like in podcast studios, radio shows, they're right up on the mic and they're talking into it. I feel like that kind of impacts the way you're talking, even, right? Because you're right
Gets you
on
that
mic.
NPR whispery quality.
Yeah. I was thinking of that SNL sketch with the.
With Baldwin,
with Baldwin, the
yeah.
dessert.
Yeah,
Baldwins.
but one of the things you do want to be aware of with a lav mic, though, is quite often the signal coming off a lav mic is going to be very weak. It's going to be very weak.
And because this guy's USB powered,
right.
so it's going to be drawing power from the USB source, but a lav mic is just straight and plugged right in.
Like, is there a preamp inside of this?
Oh, yeah,
I think so.
Because on the back there's gain.
Right.
And there's also some differences there. Now, when
so
you
that's
bring
going to be
in,
boosting the signal strength, right?
Absolutely. It's going to be boosting it right in here where the condenser is, all that stuff. I'm not an audio technician, so I'm just going to make up some terms. But also, when you're using this kind of device, you can bring that into your laptop as a USB source. So you can record right into Audition, you can record right into QuickTime. There's a whole bunch of different apps where you can just bring it right in, and so you don't have to have that external recorder.
Right.
You can get one. I believe on the blog we actually get into this a little bit deeper. We talk about the Zoom, I think the H4n on the blog, and that's an amazing tool. I've used that before, and it's really just plug and play. There's auto settings on there, which are great, and then you can record to an SD card, and you can also use that one as an external device.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good point. So there's other preamps available too, where you can convert down from the lavalier plug, that 1/8-inch stereo plug, and you can bring it up to a 1/4 inch and then plug it in and preamp it up.
Danny Rizzle again chiming in, offering us the insight that lav mics are just better because they're closer to the source. Inverse square law. You're closer to the source, you get better audio.
Totally. And
it's that simple.
The way that I understand it, I'm probably going to cause a little bit of static here by touching it, but the microphone is pointing up like this, right? And so the waves are coming out this way, and so it's that crossover between where the mic is pointing, or it's this. You wouldn't want to have it pointed directly at your mouth, right? Because then you get some of that clicking and the hissing and stuff.
Right, and that's
but
where
it's
you start
crossing
to
the sound path.
Yeah.
Science. Right?
Yeah.
Science. All right, so enough of that one. That's our kind of entry level. You're making your explainer videos, maybe doing some voiceover stuff. So that's pretty simple. What's the next level that we're looking at here for studio setups?
Well, you're going to move into a studio that you can just sort of kick up and pop up anywhere you like, and we've decided to call that the pop-up studio.
Pop-up studio. Remember those?
Yeah.
We should have that.
We should have had bubbles.
Yeah, we should have some copyrighted music on this live stream.
Yeah, that'll go well.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Now, we are very familiar with pop-up studios. We have used that in the past. We'll get into this more a little bit later. But, our studio here is kind of like a permanent pop-up studio. In the photos, for example, we've got George. We were working on an educational piece where we actually did it all in front of a green screen. So that was a pop-up space.
Where is that space?
It was right next door. So we're just working on expanding our footprint here in our Ottawa headquarters, and that's a big empty space we have next to us. So lots of room, lots of plugs, lots of space. We were able to control the lighting and the sound a lot better in there, and it was just easier because then we got the full run of the green screen, so we can actually do some fun stuff with putting George into these different scenes. We have a couple more examples. So you can see Xiao just in the bottom right corner of that picture. That was on site at the Crestron office. So I would consider that a pop-up studio because we were taking all the gear into that space, we were setting it up.
Trying to get studio quality on the move.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where maybe you're not making videos super frequently. It's something that, you know, you're investing time and energy into, but it's not like you need to have a permanent space for it.
So you can break it down if you need that space back again for anything
Exactly,
else. Yeah.
exactly. Now, you know, speaking of that, when you are considering a space, it's going to be a multi-use space. So maybe it's not engineered for studio space. So you're going to have to make some alterations to it. So we'll kind of walk you through a few of the steps, but Shao, what's the first thing you want to consider when you're using a pop-up studio space?
I mean, you want to do as much planning as you can ahead of time so you can really set up the stage right. You want to figure out a place where you might have the perfect space, but it's right next to a really high traffic area where it's really noisy. That's not going to work if you can't manage that.
Totally.
You're going to want, you touched on this earlier, you're going to want a steady power supply, right?
Yeah, exactly. Consider power, consider accessibility. You know, if you're, we actually kind of made this mistake, but we learn from these things. The one shot of you in that other frame that we had, that was like right next door to an elevator. There was a washroom
and
right
a pair
there.
of washrooms.
So fortunately, it was a less busy time in the office, so we got away with it. But yeah, staging is important. You want to make it look nice, right? You want to have something compelling, interesting. In the example we have from our blog, we've got a bookcase in the background. There is a window with a drape on it. Kind of gives a little bit more interest in the background itself.
Yeah, you don't want to make your employees watch a video where it's just one person up against a wall like it's a mugshot or something.
Exactly, yeah. Unless that's what you're going for. That's the style that you like, right? It's
we won't cast any aspersions on how you want to do
the R.
things,
Kelly interviews were all done in front of like a pretty solid, stark background. All right, maybe that was not a great reference. Now, our next step, just moving along, our next step is controlling the sound.
Yeah.
So just like we talked about in the previous bit about, you know, creating your voiceover booth, is you want to control the sound, and that's just as easy as covering up those hard surfaces. Right, if you have a window, you throw a drape over it, and that kind of works double duty, and we'll get into that for a second. But you want to get rid of that reflective glass surface.
A lot of the same principles from the voiceover booth are going to apply, just because you're still recording sound for this video.
Exactly, exactly. Now, if we were working in a space and we had fans going off and there's other kind of buzzing noises, one of the tricks that I learned from a colleague of mine years ago is that he would come into a space, if we were shooting and there was anything he had to unplug, like a fridge or a fan or something, he would take his car keys or his house keys and he'd unplug the device and he'd put the keys right next to where the plug was.
Right.
Because you don't want to walk off someone's set, you're shooting in someone's house in front of their, you know, in their living room or something, you've unplugged their fridge.
My yogurt!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The yogurt's gone bad. Or it's gone better. I don't know, it's just, yeah. Or
I wouldn't try it. I still wouldn't try it. Yeah, I couldn't recommend it.
Now, another thing you can do is kind of a hack is you can bring in more upholstered furniture too. So instead of having all this kind of hard, stark furniture, you can bring in a couch or bring in other stuff that just kind of absorbs that sound. Because you might have all these tools at your disposal without even realizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're really just trying to muffle up and avoid any of that echo, any of that, anything that could cause that problem in that space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, our last step is controlling the light.
Oh, and that is so important. There's so many times I've shot video where you get it back and you thought it was all right, and then when you've got it on the computer, why is that guy blue?
Yeah, totally. Or green, right?
Oh, yeah,
you know, if you have CFLs or fluorescent bulbs, they're going to give this terrible color temperature. One of the tips we have on the blog is they just twist those bulbs right out, maybe replace them with another kind of bulb, or just turn them off entirely and use set lights.
It's just stage management, because I mean, anything in that space that you're not controlling is going to show up.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you have a background in theater and lighting. Tell us a little bit about our basic 3-point lighting system.
So you can get really, really great, like pro quality results, essentially just with 3 lights. And how this works is, I'm going to be gesturing to lights off screen, which is not really going to be that useful, but so you have...
This guy, we got the diagram on there.
Yeah, we got the diagram. So the object, which is your subject, your host, what have you, they're going to be looking down based on this diagram. And they've got 3 lights lighting them up. You've got the key light, you've got the fill light, and the back light, and they're all doing different jobs, but they're all complementary to each other. The key light is the one that really is going to be lighting them up, but if you've got that alone, you're actually going to be casting a lot of shadow on the subject that can make them look kind of sinister or weird, or create an emotive effect you're not looking for.
We were joking about that in our rehearsal. You know, you might inadvertently make that CEO look like he's a Evil CEO.
Yeah, the
right, with
Dr.
that.
Evil look.
Yeah, the Dr. Evil, because you just have one light, and it's even subconscious, right? You're not doing it
Yeah.
on purpose, but when you see it, it's like, oh, this guy looks
When you
like a
see it,
bad
you
guy.
notice right away. So then you have your fill light, which is at about a 90-degree angle from your key light, and that'll take a lot of the shadow off. But you need the backlight, because actually when you have those two front lights going, you can end up making your subject look really flat, which is a weird effect.
Well, and having that bit of contrast as well will give some dimension,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. So you have the backlight behind them, usually directly opposite the fill or the key, and that will add depth. That will really make your subjects pop out from the background.
Usually we have a nice blue rim light.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, Faithful Mess had commented how it looked like we had a 90s music video set going on, which I thought was a compliment. I
That
actually
is a
like
compliment.
But I gotta get those blue gels back in there, because I do
Speaking
like
of,
those ones.
Faithful Mess has just joined us in the chat.
Hey, look
So,
who it is.
Speak of the.
What did she say on there? I
Just
can't.
hi family, sorry I'm late.
Hey,
Or,
cool.
Yeah,
Family spelled with a PH.
PH, yeah.
I like that.
I like that branding.
All right, so what's the last thing that we're going to consider in our pop-up studio here?
I mean, what you're going to be shooting with.
Oh yeah, right. The most important thing, the camera.
The stuff camera guys love to play with the most. Love to
Exactly.
ogle over on VizTech and B&H and all the camera sites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, as we've seen in the last few years, there's been an explosion in the technology around cameras. It's just getting better and better for less and less money.
Yeah.
Every year, there's new manufacturers that are coming out. One of the cameras that we recommend in our blog article is the Vixa HX R800. Now, we don't have that one in-house, but we do have the G20, the HF G20, which is very similar.
It's basically the same body, right?
It's basically the same body. It does the swivel thing. It's got a variable lens in here, and it's got this nice focus ring on it, too.
Move that out of the way and get a
Oh, yeah, thank
clearer
you.
look right
I
there.
don't need audio anymore.
Yeah.
So this guy's great. Now, when you have this guy set up in your studio, it also doubles as a confidence monitor.
Yeah, you just flip that screen right over.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're reading ahead on that last slide, you'd see that that's one of the other things to consider. Now, why is a confidence monitor important if you're shooting a video?
You need to be able to see what you're actually shooting. You need to see what the viewer is seeing, and that means framing up properly.
Exactly.
I mean, you might leave a water bottle or even just something you don't want to see in the shot, and if you can see it on the confidence monitor, that just saves you a whole lot of trouble later, because you can't really fix that.
Yeah, well, someone's going to suggest you can fix it in post. But
somebody always suggests that, but that's not how that works.
Now, it's kind of entry level, right? You can pick one of these up for fairly inexpensive use. They hold up pretty well, because Canon generally hold up pretty well. Of course, we also have our Z-Cam. Now, this is something that we've used in our studio before. Great little unit, and another great example of how the quality is getting better and better, and the price point is coming down further and further.
This is a beautiful camera. It's, what was this, 900 US or so?
Yeah, it was under $1,000. Obviously, the glass is going to add on that. And Shao, why don't you tell us a little bit about the micro 3 or 4/3 lenses on there?
Yeah, so it's an interchangeable lens system. As you mentioned, of course, the Z-Cam doesn't come with the lens, but of course, there's a massive family of lenses available for this, which are also compatible with a lot of consumer-level cameras and mirrorless cameras. So, I mean, you might already have some of these lenses kicking around if you do photography or video work in your spare time. And, I mean, this is just I can't speak highly enough about this, just because I'm so impressed that they've got it in such a small little form factor.
Yeah, well, you feel the quality too when you pick it up. And you definitely got on a good point there about still cameras.
Yeah.
So over here we have the, is it the G7?
This is the Panasonic Lumix G7.
The G7. So this camera was, like this camera is made for video.
Yes.
Right? This is a video camera. This camera is made for stills, but it doubles as a really great video camera.
Yeah, this will shoot up to 4K at 30 frames per second, and it's got an micro HDMI out as well, so you can hook something up to that and get some good looks. And it's also, of course, got a reversible screen, that little LCD screen that you can flip right over.
Yeah, and that's great for vloggers, right? If they're holding it out like this, but it does give you that that confidence. You can see the screen. Sorry, just to pick us up a little bit, I'm kind of dragging here.
No, of course.
We do have a confidence monitor as an example. This is something you'd set up next to the camera if you don't have one of these fancy swivel screens, or like the Z-Cam if the only confidence monitor you have is this tiny little postage stamp.
Can you even see that, man?
Display. It works in a pinch, but yeah, you definitely don't want to be using it like a
But there's
like an old Yashica or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages with a dedicated confidence monitor. The colors are a lot truer and sharper, right?
Absolutely, and this particular monitor will give you a histogram as well. If you have audio that's coming into your camera, you can also monitor those audio levels, right? So if you're using the audio on boards, you can see that. Depending on your camera, you might have to activate the HDMI setting that actually sends those through, because it may assume that you want a clean output on there.
And like, I think it's as simple as just saying, which would you rather be monitoring on, this little thing or this thing?
Yeah, exactly. If you're further away, that little monitor on the Lumix is not going to do you a lot of good.
It's going to look tiny.
Exactly. And of course, this is ours that we use for our in-the-field productions, but you can get huge monitors. We actually use computer monitors here in the studio just because they are available. They're easy to find, and the color is pretty good. It gives us an idea of framing as well. Now,
as we touched on earlier, this is essentially a pop-up studio gone permanent, isn't it?
Exactly. So the Live at Epiphan studio that we're broadcasting from every week, this is essentially a pop-up studio, but the next level that we're going to be going into is the permanent studio. So that's kind of the third setup that we want to talk about today. And it's on-prem, it's that full-time, you've got the AV guy, he's living in there. Michael, if you could just jump us back real quick into the other layout. So we see our...
We've got like a visual history of Epiphan
Yeah, exactly.
studios
This is
almost,
the visual
right?
history. So on the left, you see our current studio. Up on the top right, that was actually the Studio Alpha. So that is still in use. It's used for product demos, for explainers. George will often use it if he's appearing on another show, doing a broadcast or whatever.
Right.
Now in the bottom right corner, that's our new studio. It's still waiting to get set up. We've got a lot of little logistical things we need to figure out, but that'll be our on-prem. And that's the last thing that we want to talk about today is those on-prem studios. So I'll take you back to the Crestron studio here, top of the line. You know, they're doing a lot of video production work out of there. And this is where you've decided that video production is going to be a big part of your business and you're willing to invest in it.
Once you've got that permanent studio, that just opens up a lot of doors in terms of, as I said earlier, it's a lot easier to pitch and get video ideas accepted if you can just tell whoever you're pitching to, hey, we've got the space already, we've already paid for this equipment, and we've got, it'll take no time at all to hash this out, right?
Exactly. Now, all the principles that we talk about in the pop-up studio apply directly to the permanent studio.
Absolutely.
Right? So you still have those considerations for lighting, for sound, for camera, all those things apply. We just have a few examples of what we use in the studio here. So when you're in that on-prem, you're going to be using a permanent mixer. Maybe you've got a few things that are hardwired. You can have some lights hanging from the ceiling as well. Maybe you've got a boom or dedicated audio setup. And of course, like we do, we use our Pearl 2, and that's kind of our brain for the actual studio itself. So we do our switching, we do our streaming from the Pearl 2. We're also incorporating titles from New Blue via NDI on the Pearl 2. So it's really kind of the workhorse for our studio.
And when we were down at Crestron, we heard them saying a lot of the same things, just doing a lot of switching through the Pearl, just because, I mean, the layouts are all out there, and it's just really easy to teach someone how to use it compared to a big complicated switcher or something like that, right?
Exactly. And one of the limitations we have with our permanent pop-up studio is just the variability of it, because we do our live show every week, so it's geared towards the live show. But if you want to do an instructional, we have the same background. If you're doing Epiphan U, it's going to be the same background, or with some reconfiguration, which can be a little bit tedious, right? Having to come in, moving things around, versus having a studio space where you could have that other config just on another wall, swing the camera around 180 degrees.
Yeah, it'll add a totally new element to what could be a dry video. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, like we said already, you don't have to invest a lot of money into your studio. You don't have to buy all the top-of-the-line gear, but it doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't. It'll hurt the wallet.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, well, and like we talked about, our friends at Crestron are using some of our gear as part of their video production flow. They're working on figuring that out, and we have clients all over the world, including Thomas More University over in Europe. They're using it as part of their video production, creating content for their students and educators.
Yeah, and in that kind of a use case, the Pearl is really great because it has integration with learning management systems like Kaltura and Panopto, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, once the video is done, because the system is integrated, it'll go directly onto an LMS so the students can view it on demand whenever they want. There are going to be video bookmarks that will identify important parts for them to go back on. And, of course, like I said, it's so easy to use. It's not like you need to get all your lectures in a hall and run them through it for 2 hours or whatever. It's really intuitive with the touch screen. So
it's definitely a crucial part of that flipped classroom.
Yeah.
And also just creating content, right? So you're creating these webinars, these techinars. One of the things that we learned at Crestron is that their product managers are using video to communicate updates for their products.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that they can send out to the sales guys, and it's instant information that's very easy to ingest.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're pushing out a lot of new features, like with firmware updates or whatever, sometimes it's just easier to show someone how it's done.
Totally.
Or what it can do, right?
Now, if this is a little bit too fast for you, or if you'd like to learn a little bit more about some of the steps that we've outlined, please make sure to check out our blog at epiphan.com. Just look for the little blog section. And of course, we will be including a link for the blog post just in the show notes and in the comments if you haven't seen it there already.
We really
it's a good read.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. We get into a lot more detail in that. So
Exactly. All right. Well, that was fun.
that was.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. Good flow. Lots of information.
Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff we got through.
Now, do you remember what we're going to be talking about next week?
Overflow rooms, right? Overflow
So-
rooms 4 ways.
So what is an overflow room?
So an overflow room, well, let's say you're going to a city council meeting or something. It's a really controversial topic and everyone's jam-packed to the gills. Quite often what you'll see for newer communities, newer municipalities, they'll have a second room hooked up with a big monitor that's showing the exact same thing that's in the main council chambers. So anyone who overflows can go in there and watch it. You'll see it at conventions as well and in some courthouses for really hot trials. But
Exactly. So we'll get into that a little bit more next week. We're going to show a few different ways to do that. And of course, coming up in February, we're going to be attending ISE. And so that's in Amsterdam, which will be a pretty cool and hot location.
that date keeps getting closer and
It
closer.
does keep getting closer and closer. So if you haven't decided on going yet and you're looking for a free ticket, please check out our website. And of course, we have that invitation code, just 249071. And if you are attending, please let us know on social. We'd love to meet you in person. And of course, our stand is 11B110.
We've got some fancy new stuff to show off, don't we?
Yeah.
But we can't talk
Very
about
fancy.
that.
Excuse me, very fancy. Oh, see, my pain meds are starting to wear off now. I'm starting to die. That cold medication is wearing off.
Oh, he's got the allergy. It's going
I got the
around.
allergy. Yeah, I got that new, that one out of, what is it called?
Oh, coronavirus.
Yeah, I got the coronavirus. I thought I could just put a lime in and I'd be okay. But
You shouldn't have licked that airport floor. It was a bad idea.
I had to.
I know it was a dare, but
It was a double dog.
It was a double dog dare.
You can't put down a double
can't.
dog dare. All right, so thank you very much for watching. If you commented on the show and we missed it, I apologize. But
We had a lot of stuff to get to.
we did have a lot of stuff to get through. So thanks again for watching. Please make sure to follow us. And where can folks follow us?
We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on the YouTubes, obviously, and we also stream on Twitch, of course. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you haven't liked our Instagram page, please check that out as well. We do some behind-the-scenes content on there frequently.
Yeah.
Or infrequently. All right, well, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.